हे दोस्तों, वेलकम टू अपना कम्युनिटी। ये वो जगह है जहां आप अपने असली पोटेंशियल को एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं। देखो, सबके पास स्किल्स होते हैं, पर क्या आपके अंदर वो स्पार्क है जो आपको कामयाबी की ऊंचाइयों तक ले जा सकता है? अगर आप सोच रहे हैं जॉब चेंज करने के लिए लेकिन रेज्यूमे सेलेक्ट नहीं हो रहा, या फिर इंग्लिश में इंटरव्यू देना थोड़ा चैलेंजिंग लग रहा है, तो फिक्र मत कीजिए। यहां हम हैं आपके साथ, आपको सपोर्ट करने के लिए। अपना कम्युनिटी में आपको मिलेगी बेहतरीन कम्युनिटीज जहां आप अपने प्रोफेशनल स्किल्स को सुधार सकते हैं। चाहे आप एक्सेल, टैली, जीएसटी में माहिर बनना चाहें, या फिर आप खुद एक ब्यूटिशियन या डिजाइनर हैं, तो यहां आप अपने काम को शोकेस करके दूसरों को टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स देते हुए आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। अपना कम्युनिटी में आपको मिलेगा मेंटर्स का एक खजाना और बड़े इन्फ्लुएंसर्स का साथ, जो आपको हर कदम पर 1-to-1 गाइड करेंगे। यहां आप ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं अपने फील्ड या इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक ग्रुप्स, जहां आपको ऐसे कई लोग मिलेंगे जिनसे सीख के आप वो गलती ना करें जो वो कर चुके हैं। ऐसे लोगों की जिन्होंने स्टार्ट किया था एज एग्जीक्यूटिव्स एंड आर नाउ सक्सेसफुल मैनेजर्स इन देयर डोमेन्स, जो आपको आगे बढ़ाने में मदद करेगा। यहां आपको मिलेगा वो सही डायरेक्शन जो आपकी करियर को नेक्स्ट लेवल ले जाएगा। तो लेट्स अनलॉक योर पोटेंशियल टुगेदर। अपना कम्युनिटी में ज्वाइन करें और अपने सपनों की ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंचने का सफर शुरू करें।
Hey, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Let me introduce myself. I'm Siddharth. I'm part of QFIS. We are hosting this together with Apna. So thank you so much. We'll be starting today's session now. If you're attending these sessions for the first time, I'd like to start with a quick introduction. This is part of Apna Community Exclusives, a webinar series that we have been conducting together for the last couple of months. So we host regular sessions on 7 p.m. on weekdays, that is Monday to Friday, and between 3 to 5 p.m. on weekends, that is Saturday and Sunday. We cover a variety of topics like Gen AI, spoken English, interview prep, resume creation, etc. The main objective of these events is to help you grow professionally, help in advancement of your career, and get better jobs. So today's session is about understanding Gen AI by intuition. For this, we have Karthik here. Good afternoon, Karthik. Welcome. So let me quickly introduce him. He's a senior data scientist. He's an experienced data science professional with a demonstrated history of working with businesses across multiple domains, aiding them in a data-driven decision, leveraging a heavy dose of mathematics and applied statistics with visualization and a healthy sense of exploration. Some of his skill sets includes Python, R, Tableau, and data structures, to name a few. He has also mentored with us for a couple of years, and he's mentored a lot of professionals in this journey. Thank you so much, Karthik, for joining us. Before I hand it over to Karthik, just a reminder, any questions, any time, please drop it in the chat. We'll also give you the option to unmute. आपका कोई भी सवाल हो कभी भी किसी वक्त पे आप चैट पे डाल सकते हैं, हम आपको अनम्यूट करने का भी मौका देंगे. So thank you so much, and Karthik, I hand it over to you.
Thanks for the intro, Siddharth. Hey, folks, thanks for joining on a Saturday afternoon. My name is Karthik. Uh, like Siddharth mentioned, yeah, I've been in the analytics and data science space for about 10 years now, been a part of multiple domains and stuff. And then, like Siddharth mentioned, I've also been mentoring different various types of professionals for the last 2-3 years, where I've seen all the wide spectrum of professionals coming into the analytics and data science space, right? So with that, I also want to mention that I'm also a Medium blogger where I keep sharing my thoughts on general innovation and data science concepts, trying to understand them with intuition. I'm a strong believer of intuition matters and it matters in everything. So you'll also see that in the next half an hour, 1 hour as I talk through my slides. With that, let's get started. Before we start, I just wanted to take a minute to kind of get some thought-provoking questions for you to ponder on. You could either respond or you could just type in your responses in the chat window. So first, have you ever wondered how ChatGPT is able to give you the responses to the questions we ask? Yep, I see a lot of few questions coming in AI, ML, Gen AI. I have answers to all of that in the subsequent slides as we go through. Probably I'll also try to understand the audience here. Have you heard of ChatGPT? Just put a yes or no in the comment box. So I see a few responses coming in. And have you ever thought of how, can you give me examples of how ChatGPT has made your life simpler, your day-to-day life? What have you done on ChatGPT so far? Waiting for a few more minutes to see a few responses. Yes, content creation, good one. What else are people doing with ChatGPT? Now, have you ever wondered how much data does it take, or what could be the cost of creating something like a ChatGPT? Probably you'll get answers to these questions in the next half an hour, 40 minutes. Feel free to kind of pause me at any point if you have any question, or I'll also keep giving periodic breaks as I go through my slides. Yeah, let's start with this one, right? Now, Gen AI has made a huge hype all over the last 1 year. But then taking a step back, you might also be wondering what is generative AI and where is it fit in this whole scheme of things in the whole data science spectrum. So it's all started with artificial intelligence that has been there from the 1960s, uh, early 1900s, late 1900s, where people started to see what we could do to help computers imitate the behavior of humans. So that is what artificial intelligence was all about. Basically, the concept being simple, can we understand what humans do in a given situation based on data and let computers imitate that? So that is what artificial intelligence is all about. And a subset of that is basically machine learning, where we try to use very specific or nuanced statistical algorithms that enable computers to again replicate human behavior or mimic human behavior. That one also has been there for ages. It's not something which started in 2020 with the whole hype of big data and stuff. That's been there for a long time. And then the other subset again is deep learning, where another subset where we kind of have neural patterns. We don't know what happens within a neural network, but it is very, very good at mimicking. If you give it, say, 1,000 records of labeled data, what I mean by labeled data is, say, 1,000 records, 1,000 feedbacks, and then ask it to classify them. It'll somehow find a way to create those patterns among them in a similar way how a human brain would, and try to replicate that. So that is what deep learning is all about. Now, amidst all this, where do you think Gen AI fits in? Gen AI is also another innovative branch of artificial intelligence, which also has revolutionized the way machines learn and understand. What we mean by that is the like I've said, in the machine learning and deep learning or artificial intelligence, the his, historical systems were based on a lot of rules. They had predefined data sets, labeled data sets, etc. But generative AI possesses the ability to create new ones by understanding scenarios, understanding the content, images, text, and lot more. Think of generative AI as like having a machine that can dream and create. How it does, we'll probably deep dive into in a bit. Before that, let's also try and understand a few use cases as to how people are using ChatGPT. One thing, yeah, like somebody said, it generates relevant content, and it was also contextually relevant. It's not like I ask something about, say, job search, and it gives me something totally irrelevant about doing a job as a delivery person. It's it understands the context of when you say job search. It'll understand what you intend to mean by job search. That is how contextually relevant it is, and it is able to is capable of creative writing, storytelling, and also answering very open-ended questions. You go to ChatGPT and ask anything, like say, what is ChatGPT? It will give you a good response. You ask it about probability, it will give you questions, so on and so forth. It can also be your pair programmer. It can write code snippets for you in languages like Python based on very specific provided instructions. Like you can go to ChatGPT right now as well and say, give me a Python code to calculate the probability of rolling a two-sided dice and rolling a sum of 7. It will give you the entire logic of how to compute the probability, and it will give you a Python code to do it also. So that is how capable it is. And then it also is good at engaging in human-like conversations, allowing for back and forth interaction. You can basically use it to, as a chat, you can ask it any question, ask follow-ups. You could use it to summarize your research papers in case you're interested in reading a few. So there is no dearth of what you can probably do with ChatGPT. It's that powerful. To give some more stats on the same context, 40% of the code that was checked in by GitHub Copilot users was auto-generated. They didn't have to write that code, they just generated it on the fly. It could be your boilerplate codes, code syntaxes, or simple code snippets to do a specific task, or code comments, etc. And then ChatGPT hit the 100 million users mark in just 2 months. Much faster than all the other social media products you can think of, like your Facebooks, TikToks. None of them were able to reach that fast. The amount of user base ChatGPT reached was not, it was not able to reach in 2 months for sure. And then there is also a prediction that by 2025, 10% of the data produced globally will be generated by generative AI or other algorithms like ChatGPT. And then it takes 150 GB of data to kind of train something like a GPT 3.5, which was powering ChatGPT until a few years back. Now I think it's 4.0 is the latest one which OpenAI has launched. But yeah, imagine the amount of data that goes. And then the cost is estimated to have been somewhere about $4.6 million. So what you are getting for free here is not something which was an intern project where some random person has just developed, and it takes a lot of compute, it takes a lot of infra, and it takes a lot of validation to kind of have something like a ChatGPT up and running. Yep. And now you must be wondering, is ChatGPT a real thing, or are companies actually using it? Or ChatGPT is also something under the class of generative AI, right? So generative AI is already being used by companies, and you are a product of generative AI in a lot of ways. Google is using generative AI to improve the accuracy of Google search. I'm sure all of you here use Google search day in and day out. And then OpenAI has also partnered with Microsoft, and the Bing search is totally powered by the GPT models which you use use via Chat GPT. And then even the Open Office 365 is now powered with with Gen AI to kind of create slides, draft emails. You can go to Gmail in the Microsoft 365 suite and ask it to draft an email, and it will do it for you. Really professional ones. Adobe again has its own product built on generative AI called Sensei AI, used to create personalized marketing campaigns and improve the accuracy of the Photoshop photo editing software. Amazon, we all know, have heard of Amazon's Alexa, the voice assistant. It uses generative AI to answer questions and provide product recommendations as well. Last but not the least, like we were seeing in the previous slide, GitHub has its own AI-powered pair programmer called Copilot, which uses generative AI to provide developers with code suggestions. And then you might also now be wondering, who's using generative AI in general? Is it just are people actually using it, or are we the ones who are using it? Based on a survey that was done in the United States in 2022, where there were over 4,500 respondents, it seemed that marketing and advertising, along with technology folks, have been the forerunners when it comes to leveraging generative AI. Again, what they could be doing is similar to what you're doing as well. It's like generative, like someone mentioned in the starting, creating content or content ideas that is there. Then they could also be using it for code generation, code creation, brainstorming ideas, and in consulting to create all those fancy pitch decks you see in the consulting domain that is being done. Healthcare is a very innovative way of leveraging generative AI. I think we have seen a lot of the new healthcare startups coming up with generative AI based solutions to improve the quality of healthcare being provided. Accounting has a bunch of them with a lot of the analytic support which generative AI has is something which can be path breaking for people in the accounting domain. They can, instead of trying to validate numbers, they can just let a generative AI kind of look through all the documents and then give relevant responses or validate the accounts which they have. So like I said earlier, the possibilities of the amount of use cases which you can do with generative AI is we are just touching the surface and there is much more to come. Before I kind of touch base on the use cases and stuff, probably wanted to take a couple of minutes to see if there are any questions from folks here.
If anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself. You can use the chat as well. अगर किसी को कुछ भी सवाल पूछना हो तो आप अनम्यूट करके पूछ सकते हैं. Karthik, I think currently we don't have any questions as such. We can probably move ahead, like, and circle back to this later.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Then now, like I said, what are people doing with Gen AI in the industry? That could be one thing, one other question as well. All right. So now from a business standpoint, generative AI is adding value in a lot of ways, be it your customer support, be it where in the, I think a lot of companies are already there and you will see a lot of other companies following through where when you reach out to support, it is not a human answering you, but it's going to be a generative AI based assistant addressing your response. And now these assistants are also getting more capable in terms of directly going ahead and taking actions. Like to give you an example, right? I ordered something on Zomato last week, and there was an issue in the quality of the product delivered. And then when I reached out to the support, there was no human, but there was an agent or a bot at the back end which processed the image I uploaded and then also processed my refund. So now imagine what used to be a 1 person, 1 hour job earlier is now being done by a Gen AI assistant with a click of a button. And then product descriptions. Even if you go to Amazon, you will soon start seeing all the product descriptions being enhanced with in more readable format. Or even Amazon already has, if you've already seen, they have something called a feedback summarizer. Or if you look at the product feedbacks, you have a summary which is generated at the top, which says, okay, based on all the feedbacks, this is what people are saying. Now that is a Gen AI capability which Amazon has enabled for the users. Code refactoring and documentation, we have seen how Copilot users have literally checked in 40% of code without even writing it. Then obviously in companies, the internal HR IT questions. Now in big companies like TCS or all, where there are at least more than a lakh or 40-50,000 employees, it takes a workforce to kind of help address their HR and IT questions. I could reach out to my HR for anything like where is my payslip, or how much is my leave balance, or it could be like some IT questions like my laptop is not working. What should I do? So all those questions are currently being answered by agents or humans, which is a huge cost to the companies. Now, one way we can companies can make their HR and IT unit stronger is using something like this generative AI bot, which could probably help answer say 40-50% of the employee questions. That's a lot in the in a company with say 40, 50,000 employees. So in general, the use cases which generative AI is capable of addressing could be categorized into one, information extraction, where you extract information from a piece of a PDF or whatever that is. Information extraction is one. Text classification, where you have thousands of feedback coming in and you want to classify it to be able to take decisions on. That could be one. Then conversational AI, which we have seen the HR and IT question bots, etc. Text summarization. You could even, as a normal user, you could just say you're reading a research paper. You don't have the time to spend to read the entire 10 pages of a research paper. You could just use Gen AI or ChatGPT to summarize it. And last but not the least, content generation. That is where generative AI has been making all the hype. Then we have key characteristics. Now you must be wondering, okay, Gen AI, it's not a magic wand. It has its own limitations, which will come to a little later in the session. But what are the key characteristics of Gen AI? One, it is data driven. Gen AI is not a magic wand or something. It's data driven. They are trained on large data sets of existing content. This data could be anything from text to images to music and so on. The more data the model is trained on, the better it will be able to generate new content. So currently, when I said earlier that Chat GPT, the 3.5 GPT 3.5 was trained on 150 GB of data, that is the amount of data which it had access to back then. Now the latest one is much more optimized and is trained on even larger data. That's the reason you see the responses improving from your 3.5 to 4.0. So one, it is data driven. It is not deterministic. What it basically means is you ask the same question twice, you get a different response each time. But both the responses are semantically similar, or they mean the same, but they are not exactly the same. So that is why we call it non-deterministic. And this is because all the models are trained on probabilistic data. And there is certain amount of randomness. I mean, you say probability, there is a scope of randomness involved in the whole generation process as well, right? And then we'll talk about probability, which is the basic building block of something like a language model, which is powering all the Gen AI use cases. Then the third characteristic we have is it's unsupervised. You don't need to have labels or instructions to train a Gen AI model. All you do is you just give the entire text you have, and then it is able to train by itself and able to answer questions. You could also try something like give a PDF and ask questions on the PDF. It will still be able to give you. You are not labeling or doing anything with those questions. So that's why we call it unsupervised, where these models learn to generate new content by simply observing the data they are trained on. I see a few questions coming in. Internship or course. There are a bunch of courses available online for you to kind of understand the basics of Gen AI and all. Yeah, there's no dearth of information available to learn Gen AI also. It's all over the place right now. Everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. Gen AI to use to register complaints. Yeah, a lot of even the governments will start using something like this to kind of help you register complaints and stuff. Yeah. Now comes probability. Before we jump out, let's kind of take a step back and understand probability. I know most of you know probability. I'll just use a few examples too, so that we are all aligned in terms of what I'm going to talk next. Probability is nothing but the measure of how likely something is to happen in the future. It could be a coin flip. Say when you flip a coin, there are two possible outcomes, a heads or a tails. The probability of heads is 50%, the probability of tails is also 50% because there are only two outcomes. Now in a scenario, let's now take a small break, and then probably I'll give you a question and you can give the response via the chat. Say for example, I'm sure all of you understand the standard probability example of a deck of cards. Say you have a deck of 52 cards which has 4 sets of 13 cards each and all. Now, can someone tell me what could be the probability of drawing a king from a set of 52 cards?
You can use the chat to answer. You can also unmute yourself if you want to have a discussion.
Anybody can take a guess on what would be the probability of drawing a king from a deck of 52 cards? One by 13. Good one, Priyanshu. Anyone else? Yes, Sania also said 1 by 13. That's right. So in a deck of 52 cards, you have 4 kings. That basically means the probability becomes 4 out of 52, which is 1 by 13. How is it 2 by 52, Sania? You want to unmute and explain? Let's see if we can do one more. Let's try doing one more. What do we do? Rolling a dice, even simpler for folks who might not understand the deck of cards. Say you have a 2 dice, which has 6-sided dice, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What do you think would be the probability of rolling a sum of 7? Anyone already solving it? Probability of rolling a sum of 7 on a dice when you roll 2 dice. Priyanshu, that was quick. Anyone else? Cool. I think we are at the halfway mark. In the interest of time, let's move on. So Priyanshu, you got it right. It's 1 by 6 because there are 6 combinations of a result that lead to 7, and that's the reason the probability is 6 by 36, which is 1 by 6. So now the other term we'll also have to understand in the scheme of things to understand Gen AI with or the basics of Gen AI is something called a probability distribution. What it means is it's like a map that shows all possible outcomes of an event and tells us how likely each event is. In the same case of rolling a die, right? Imagine you roll a 6-sided die. Now, when you roll it, you get 6 possible outcomes. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The probability distribution in that case is the probability of each of the outcome, like you see on the slide there. So that's what a probability distribution is. And the third term, which is also important in the scheme of things, is something called the conditional probability. It tells us the likelihood of one event happening based on a condition that another event has already occurred. What we mean, again, based on an example, in general, say for example, if somebody asks you what is the chance of having traffic today, they might say it's 30%, considering it's a weekday or a weekend and it's a Saturday afternoon, the probability could be 30%. The reason I've taken the traffic example is because I'm based out of Bangalore and we have a lot of traffic here. And then now in case of conditional probability, now if example, if you know it's already raining out there, the probability might change because agar barish hua to there could be more traffic. So that's the reason now the probability now becomes not 30%, but it's now 70% because if it rains, the roads get waterlogged and there is chance of congestion. That's the reason there could be more traffic. So now here, this is what conditional probability is. The probability of traffic is 30%, but the probability of traffic given rain, that is 70%. So in simplifying this, probability can help you make better decisions and predictions about the future. which is what generative AI is also all about. Moving on to the next one. Yeah, this is where probably it starts to get a little technical. Be with me. I'm here to answer any questions you may have on this also. So a language model in general. So for now, I'll be talking only about the text generation part. I'll not go into the image or video generation part of capabilities of Gen AI, but the core concepts are still the same. Now, a language model is nothing but a probability distribution over a sequence of words. What it means is for a sentence S which says where are we going, the probability of the word going is going to be determined by the probability of words which appear before it, which basically means the probability of where into the probability of where given where we are. So all of this together is what constitutes the probability of the word going. And now a language model is a distribution of all the probabilities across the corpus it sees. And that is what is a language model. The probability of a sentence can be defined as the product of probability of each given word or the previous words. Now, if it is say 100 words or 100 sentences, it's called as normal language model, and it can predict based on the next word based on the probability occurrences it has seen. A large language model is a language model that's a huge corpus, like say 3,500 billion words. Taking it a little more thing, probably, yeah, this is what I want to cover in this. Now, say for example, when I give you a word, when you type a word, how does ChatGPT generate text? It basically predicts what should be the next word given the probabilities. Let's take the example here. Paris is a city. So now it will take that as an input, and then it assigns probability of all the possible next words. And then another example could be Paris is a city, and now the probability of have is 0.3, that is 0.1, where is 0.09, so on and so forth. Now it chooses a word based on the which has the highest probability. Now this one is the logic which is powering all your Gen AI algorithms out there. Every time they are capable enough to compute probabilities, generate the sentences on the fly. So imagine the amount of infra it takes at the back end to power something like this. So long story short, it's not rocket science or it's not some magic which is happening behind the scenes. It is a pure play of probability. And the way we convert, now you might be wondering how does the algorithm or a machine understands each sentence? So on that, it's something called embeddings. So if example, this is how a human reads a sentence. When you look at the feedback reviews and somebody asks you to classify into positive or negative, you just go through them and identify those negative words and say, okay, this is negative review. And then if you see positive words, you say this is a positive review. But that's not how machines understand. Machines understand something called embeddings, because you would have read about the basics of computers, right? A computer, all it sees is a 1 and a 0, or anything which is numeric and not text. So what happens behind the scenes is a text get converted into a embedding, which is basically a representation in form of ones and zeros or more numerics. And this is where a lot of evolution has happened in the in the whole domain of text or natural language processing. Now, what happens is these probability models understand the embeddings or a representation of this text and are able to identify probability distributions of them. And thus, what you get as an output is something like a chat GPT, which seems like some magic happening, but it's not magic. It is pure play of probability. I'll probably pause here for another minute to see if there are any questions from the folks here. Cool. I assume there are no questions and people have already understood chat what generative AI is and what probability is by now. Moving on. So yeah, LLM evolution. So over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of traction happening in the large language models, and this is becoming a cat race between all the top tech companies to kind of be on the forefront. So you'd have heard something when in June 2021 is when OpenAI has made ChatGPT available for public usage, and since then we have seen all the companies kind of going all over in terms of making their LLMs, creating LLMs, making them accessible both to public and for their own usage. Like say, for example, Google had their own Palm models, which is what powers the search behind them. And then Meta has its own LLM models. They have also launched Llama and made it open source for everybody to use. So you see a lot of applications out there which are being built on the open source LLMs, large language models, which these companies have built and shared for public usage. And then Facebook uses Llama, Google uses something called Palm, OpenAI ChatGPT uses GPT-4 right now. And then there are also colleges, top tech institutions, which are taking a stab at these, and that's what you see Alpaca, which is released by Stanford, so on and so forth. So, folks here, can you type in the chat as to how many LLM names have you heard before? How many words in the slide have you heard before the session? I'll give it a minute for people to probably think and count. None? Is that a zero? Cool. Moving on. And then there are various applications like we have discussed, right? All these LLMs have a variety of applications all the way from information extraction, text classification, conversational AI, summarization, generation, so on and so forth, where you see between although there are multiple LLMs out there, there are LLMs which are used for specific use cases. So this one, if you see BERT example, which is also a first transformer-based language model, is very good for information extraction and text classification, which is one of the use cases. And then say, for example, something like GPT is very good for conversational AI. So different algorithms or different large language models are built for different purposes. It's not like this is a one-size-fits-all solution, but they are very focused on specific problem solving things. As I mentioned earlier, it is not like a magic wand where you have sorry. Yeah. So there are a lot of potential risks and roadblocks in terms of generative AI implementation. One could be hallucinations. The fact that it is non-deterministic, it could also mean that it always need not be right. It could think of its own way and then create an output which might not be correct. That's what we call hallucination. Then it could also give you biased outputs. It could also lead to copyright infringement and misuse, because something like this, say for example, I write an article and somebody uses ChatGPT to rephrase the entire thing. Now, who gets credit for it? Neither of them. So that's where the whole copyright thing is still a point of discussion in the whole adoption of ChatGPT or Gen AI in general. Then there is cost. I think the cost to train a GPT was somewhere about $4 million. So it's not easy for everyone to access that. Cost is a major blocker. And then there is no privacy and governance yet in terms of how the Gen AI implementation should be, what should be part of it, etc. With that, I think we have come to the end of the session. I want to end it with a quote by Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, where he said, AI has more profound impact on humanity than fire, electricity, and the internet. So that is how the tech companies are thinking of AI, and that is what we'll start seeing. We are already started seeing with what ChatGPT could do to us. So that's it. I'll stay around if there are any questions from folks here.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, if you want to ask something, please go ahead. This is a dedicated Q&A section, so if you want to know any queries, any doubts, please feel free to unmute yourself and clarify. You can also type it in the chat, and we can take up a few questions before we come towards the conclusion of the session.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
So, in recent times, I have heard a lot about prompt engineering. So, what's the difference between prompt engineering and generative AI?
Sorry. Prompt engineering is nothing but how you engage with Gen AI algorithms. Like say, for example, you go to ChatGPT and ask a question. Now, how you ask it is what a prompt engineering is all about. So it could be, you could ask it, if you ask a generic question, like say, for example, if you want to know something like what is probability, if you ask, just type the word probability, the response is different versus you ask, what is probability? Give me probability examples of probability. That's a very specific one. So there is a difference in asking directly probability versus framing it properly. The framing part is what prompt engineering is all about.
I hope that answers the question. If you still have any further doubts, you can continue asking. Funny Kumar, right? Yeah.
No, thank you, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else who wants to ask a question? Okay. Karthik, in that case, I think I have one final question on behalf of everyone here in the audience. Is that the impact of AI and how important or crucial of this, like the skill set is essentially for freshers who are trying to, get started with their career. So if you can give us a little bit of idea on that.
Yep, that's a good one. I think, yeah, thanks for asking that on behalf of everyone. It helps. So AI is as a skill set, right? It's not no longer a niche anymore. It is part of a lot of curriculums. It's not like I don't want to learn AI because I'm not interested in it. It's not gonna be a choice. AI is gonna be there. It's basically you versus another person using AI is what you're competing against.
Yep.
So AI as a skill set, it need not always mean that AI as a skill set doesn't mean building AI algorithms. It also comes down to being smart enough to learn, understand how to use AI in your day-to-day activities. Like say the GitHub Copilot example, right? If you're a software engineer, you could either learn how to use a copilot and become fast at generating your code and solving your tasks, or go the traditional route, trying to do it by yourself and say take 8 hours versus spend 4 hours using GitHub Copilot and write the same piece of code. So AI, that is where we are all headed in terms of AI. I think there is a very common quote out there which says the same thing. AI is not going to replace humans. It is a human using AI which will replace humans. So that is how profound it's gonna have in terms of, for any fresh graduate, it also come down to how smart they are able to use these AI algorithms out there to make their life simpler.
Correct. Got it. All right. So I think that definitely helps, and it should be should also address the question the people have fear around AI, whether or not it will replace them. So I think you've answered that question as well through this answer as well. So we'll just wait one more minute if there's any final question. Otherwise, Karthik, I'll ask you to maybe share your parting words for the session here, and then we can move towards concluding this. पीपल हु आर इन द सेशन, जो आप सेशन में हैं, अगर आपके पास और कुछ भी सवाल है, कुछ आप जानना चाहते हैं एआई के बारे में, कैसे उसको यूज कर सकते हैं, आप पूछ सकते हैं. इफ यू हैव एनी लास्ट क्वेश्चंस, प्लीज लेट अस नो. You can type in the chat or you can just unmute yourself. Okay. Karthik, I think we don't have a lot of questions in this session so far then. If you have any parting words for us, please let us know. And then we can move towards concluding this.
Yep, all the very best in your careers. Make sure learn how to use AI. It's only there to help you and not replace you. Keep that in mind whenever you hear somebody talking about AI is going to replace this job, that job. AI is not going to replace all the jobs or no jobs. It's just that the number of the we are going to solve a lot more problems using AI, because in world we have lot of problems. There is no dearth of the problems we're going to solve. It's just that we are using AI to become smarter and solve more problems faster.
Yeah.
So all the very best in your career.
Thank you so much, Karthik. Thank you for hosting this session. I know it's a Saturday afternoon. A lot of people might not be in a mood to learn, but yeah, we really congratulate people who were able to get your time out, attend this session. I hope this has been a valuable one. You were able to get something which will help you advance in your career and grow. So quickly reiterating a couple of things about these sessions as well. We have these sessions almost every day now. We have these sessions from 7 p.m. on the weekdays and 3 to 4 p.m. during the weekends. We will be covering a wide range of topics, starting from your interview preparation to spoken English, technical topics, and essentially anything and everything that can help you in your professional growth and take your career into the next step. I've shared the feedback forms here, and I've also shared the link to our website. You can find the recording of this session there itself. And in addition to that, other sessions that are also scheduled for the next week, you'll find there, so you can register from there. Once again, a huge thank you, Karthik, for your time, and a huge thank you for everyone who came for the session and made this a successful one. Wishing you all a very great day ahead, and have a nice day. Thank you so much, everyone.